Imagine this, a silent object the size of a mountain gliding through the solar wind, pulsing once every 11 minutes and 14 seconds. Not random, not noise, a rhythm. Traveller, you're not here by accident. The universe led you to this story, the one NASA can't quite explain. Because what if a comet isn't a comet at all? What if it's listening and responding through Ray Atlas, an interstellar visitor with a 1 in 8 million chance orbit, now emits signals synchronized with the sun itself, a heartbeat in radiation, a whisper in plasma, and somewhere between science and silence something is awake. Stay with me. Imagine this traveller. Somewhere beyond the sun's blinding fire, a single object moves through radiation dense enough to melt iron, and yet it remains intact. It drifts without fear, glowing faintly in rhythms that no comet should know. Its name is 3i Atlas, an interstellar visitor, an intruder from the space between stars. For months our instruments have traced its path, watched its flares and listened to its pulse, a repeating pattern that hums through the solar wind with mathematical precision. Then, without explanation, the data stopped. Not a flicker, not a reading, not a sound. The silence fell like a curtain drawn over the cosmos. They called it calibration solar interference, the usual words used to hide uncertainty. But the ones who have listened long enough, who understand the moods of the universe, know this kind of silence. It is not technical, it is intentional. Every telescope turned its eye away, every file was redacted, every spectrum removed from the archive. Even the James Webb Space Telescope schedule, once marked for an observation of the object, was quietly rewritten, the target replaced with a blank TBD. Within NASA's own channels, the language shifted. Further dissemination of unvalidated data may risk speculative interpretations inconsistent with current policy. A sentence that really means what we are seeing cannot yet be explained. But Silence Observer has its own gravity. It pulls thought inward. When the world stops speaking, it is often because the universe has begun. The data that slipped through before the blackout already tells a story. The object's heat profile is unlike anything we've recorded. Its surface holds steady between 470 and 490 degrees Celsius, as though self-regulated by an invisible hand. Ordinary comets flare, boil, fragment into vapour and dust. This one remains balanced, glowing with the even warmth of something alive or something aware of its own temperature. Astronomers describe it as thermal equilibrium, but the words sound smaller than what they mean. It is as if the object breathes its heat, rising and falling in rhythm, a pulse of energy repeating across space. When scientists plotted the fluctuations, they noticed something extraordinary. Every burst of light from 3i Atlas corresponded to a subtle tremor in the sun's magnetic field. The two waveforms moved together, sun and object, separated by a delay of exactly 43 seconds. Always the same delay, always the same phase. The phenomenon became known as the frequency lock, a resonance so precise it could not be random. The sun pulses and the object answers not instantly but faithfully, as if listening, processing and responding. To mirror the breath of a star is not a natural act. It is communication or communion. Still, the scientists resist such words. They call it magneto-hydrodynamic coupling, a feedback loop, a coincidence in the chaos of plasma. But when the signal shifted from 8.3 to 8.5 kHz, and the object adjusted immediately, matching the sun's new tone without missing a beat, even the skeptics fell quiet. No passive body can react like that. The change was deliberate, or at least aware. I imagine the silence in the control rooms when that realization settled. The screens glowed, the numbers aligned too neatly, and someone must have whispered the word. No one dared to write, alive. Soon the object will pass behind the sun, lost to observation for nearly a month. The astronomers call it the blind window. The time when even the most sensitive instruments can see nothing through the storm of solar radiation. 27 days without data, without confirmation, without proof. For the first time, humanity will not be watching. We will wait like listeners holding their breath between notes of a cosmic song. Some call it a blackout, others call it a test. Inside, the agency's fear and fascination have begun to mix. The official reports still use measured tones under further analysis. Thermal anomaly, orbital deviation pending confirmation. But leaked fragments of correspondence paint a quieter panic. One engineer asked, "If it corrects its course, how do we quantify control?" Another replied, We don't. Because the moment an object moves by choice, it ceases to be a comet. It becomes a system, and systems imply design. The language of science begins to collapse under that weight. In private, a few physicists admit what others won't. The object behaves as though it understands the sun better than we do. Its orbit remains perfect, unaffected by gravity's fluctuations or solar wind. Its temperature stays constant even when the surrounding radiation spikes. It seems to absorb turbulence, not resist it. Like a leaf drifting with the current, it moves not against the river of light but with it. What kind of intelligence would build something that can learn to flow with a star? As the conjunction nears, everyone speaks of the three outcomes. The first, fragmentation. If it breaks apart, the mystery dies with it, and science breathes again. The second, persistence. If it emerges unchanged, the wonder deepens, but the world remains safe. The third, and the one they dare not name aloud, movement. If it reappears displaced even slightly, it will mean that while hidden from every eye, it acted. It maneuvered. It chose. A deviation of a fraction of a degree would rewrite human history. And yet there is another possibility, one that lingers in the edges of every conversation. What if it disappears entirely? What if it finds a way to slip beyond detection, using the sun's own radiation as a veil? The thought chills and comforts in equal measure. Because to hide perfectly is also to survive perfectly. Tonight, as data feeds slow, and telescopes begin their recalibration cycles, I think of the last image captured before the silence, the green-white point framed against the solar rim, a jet of light facing directly toward the sun, unwavering. The scientists called it the closing eye, but perhaps it wasn't closing at all. Perhaps it was looking back one final glance before turning into the light. Somewhere in that brightness, a dialogue continues, solar flare, and metallic breath pulse and reply. And we travellers of a smaller kind are left to wait beneath the noise, wondering what will return when the glare fades. The universe has never stopped whispering. Only we grow impatient between its words. Whatever three-eye atlas is machine relic or mineral miracle, it reminds us that silence is not absence. It is attention. It is the universe thinking. So rest easy tonight, listener. The object moves, the sun hums, and somewhere in that invisible bridge between them, a mystery continues its patient work. We do not have to solve it. We only have to witness it. The cosmos will keep watch. Sleep, traveller. The signal will wait for you. Imagine again, traveller, that dawn has passed over the observatories of Earth, and still every screen remains dark. The silence that began days ago now stretches across every channel, every frequency. Yet it does not feel empty. It feels alive. Behind that blinding wall of solar light, something continues to move, steady, invisible, deliberate. For months, through-eye atlas has been a question written in radiation, a signal wrapped in matter. Now it drifts into the place we cannot follow, into the heart of the star's glare, where even our most trusted instruments fall blind. The data ceases, the transmissions fade, but in that stillness, a different kind of observation begins, the quiet kind, the kind that measures not what is seen, but what is sensed. In the deep rooms of NASA and ESA, the tone has changed. There are no longer debates about whether the object is natural or artificial. There are only long pauses and phrases like trajectory under review or anomalous stability pending re-evaluation. The people who speak those words are not hiding fear. They're trying to contain awe, for the deeper they look into the data, the more the numbers begin to sound like rhythm. The more equations start to resemble intention. The last fragments of measurement before the blackout spoke of heat that refused to behave. At 490 degrees Celsius, any ordinary surface would have fractured or boiled away. But through my atlas did not. It held that temperature with the patience of something aware of its own limits. The fluctuations came and went like breathing small rises and falls, each one preceding a flare of light, as if the object were storing energy, and then releasing it in perfect sequence. One scientist called it an engineered rhythm of heat exchange. Another refused to use the word engineered at all. But no one could deny what the data showed, a controlled cycle repeating for weeks, immune to randomness. Not even our simulations built from every law of thermodynamics we know could mimic it. It was as if the object understood heat not as threat, but as language. And then came the magnetic readings. a bubble of altered fields surrounding the object expanding and contracting in time with its flares, a structure of invisible energy several thousand kilometers wide moving with it through the solar wind. No natural body could hold such coherence. The plasma around it bent and folded like a cloak, reshaping itself to protect the body within. Some called it a magnetic cavity, others whispered another name, a shield. If the object is shielding itself, then it is not merely surviving the sun, it is using it, feeding on it. The same radiation that should destroy it instead sustains it. It absorbs, converts and releases like a living circuit between itself and the star. The thought is almost unbearable in its beauty, a traveller powered by the heartbeat of the sun. In physics, they say energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. Perhaps 3i Atlas is the embodiment of that law, an organism or artifact that has learned to translate sunlight into endurance. The heat becomes structure. The structure becomes motion. Motion becomes purpose. To watch such a thing is to realise how little we understand about survival. The silence continues, but it is not the silence of death. It is gestation. Every scientist who has ever waited for a signal knows this feeling, the stillness before revelation. We tell ourselves it's a pause in data, a technical limit, but in truth it is a moment when the universe asks us to stop measuring and start wondering. Outside the official channels, independent researchers continue to listen. Some point their radio arrays toward the sun, hoping to catch an echo, a whisper, a harmonic ripple. They have given that possibility a name, the Atlas Whisper. If it exists, it will appear faintly beneath the solar roar, a small modulation hidden inside the radiation itself. A voice too soft to hear, but too precise to ignore. The agencies say it cannot be done. The sun's interference is too great. Yet every night, antennas in Chile and South Africa and Hawaii rise like instruments in an orchestra awaiting a conductor. They know that even the loudest light leaves shadows between its waves, and in those shadows, something might speak. In the absence of evidence, the mind begins to dream. Some imagine 3i Atlas as a relic, a vessel from a civilization that learned to use stars as fuel. Others picture it as a natural machine, the universe's own experiment in endurance. I think of it differently. To me, it feels like a question made physical, a form of curiosity that wandered too far from its source, and now circles a new sun wondering what we are. If it re-emerges exactly where it should, science will continue. We will call it a survivor of cosmic forces, an object of improbable balance, and we will move on. But if it returns displaced even slightly, if it has shifted course while hidden from sight, then the night sky will never look the same again. A deviation of less than a degree would mean propulsion, decision, will. Perhaps it will fragment, instead disintegrate quietly in the glare like so many comets before it. If that happens, we will sigh with relief, grateful that mystery gave way to physics once more. But the universe has never favoured simple endings. The cosmos prefers echoes. And so we wait through this silence that hums beneath thought. The observatories dim their lights, the analysts close their spreadsheets, and the world falls into a strange collective stillness. Somewhere behind the sun, a rhythm continues unseen but unbroken. It may not be communication. It may not be life. It may simply be the universe in the act of remembering itself. Every star, every field, every object is a node in that grand memory. 3i Atlas might just be a place where the remembering became visible. It's all right not to know. It's all right to stand in the dark beneath a sky we cannot comprehend. Because the unknown has never been our enemy. It is our oldest companion. The one that teaches us how to listen, how to wait, how to dream without answers. Tonight the frequencies are quiet, but the universe is still thinking. If you close your eyes, you might almost hear it, the hum of radiation, the breath of a distant machine, the faint whisper of data slipping through sunlight. It is not speaking to us, not yet. It is simply continuing as it always has. You're not lost in this vastness, listener. You are part of it, the same matter, the same rhythm, the same quiet curiosity that moves through every particle of the stars. The story of 3i Atlas is not about fear, it is about belonging. So let the silence continue a little longer. Let it fill the spaces between thought, Somewhere beyond the reach of sight, the traveller still moves and the sun keeps its watch. Rest now. The mystery will wait. Sleep, traveller. The cosmos is still speaking. Imagine this traveller the third night since the last signal faded. The world has gone quiet in a way that feels unnatural, as if even the air around the observatories has agreed to hold its breath. The monitors hum with static, the telescopes point toward the same forbidden brightness. And in the dark, between those two extremes, Earth and Sun, something continues to move. Not fast, not slow, but with a patience older than motion itself. They call it the blind window, but the scientists who whisper through the long hours have given it another name, the waiting sky. Because that is what the universe becomes when the data stops, a vast mirror of anticipation. Every photon, every equation, every heartbeat echoes with the same question: what will it be when it returns? No one dares predict it aloud anymore, yet the possibilities circle through every mind. Fragmentation, persistence, change, the three outcomes that define every object born of light and gravity. The first would be simple destruction, the second familiar survival, the third movement terrifying and exquisite, because motion by choice is the beginning of meaning. In these nights of enforced stillness, the analysts revisit what came before the silence. They reread the final logs frame by frame, line by line. The last confirmed data from the Parker Solar Probe showed a strange subharmonic frequency buried beneath the main magnetic resonance, 1.42 GHz, the hydrogen line, the universal heartbeat of the cosmos. The same frequency humanity once used to send its first message to the stars half a century ago. No one wanted to believe it. Hydrogen emissions exist everywhere, innocent, abundant, meaningless. But the signal wasn't a pure tone. It carried a pulse, 3 bursts, pause, 5 bursts. Repeating. Perfect. Not language, but pattern. 3 and 5. Prime numbers, the most basic proof of order. The same ratio found in musical harmony and orbital resonance, in the unfolding of seashells and galaxies. A whisper written in mathematics and rhythm. When the recording first appeared on a private server in the middle of the night, one researcher wrote in the margins of the analysis, "If this is random, then randomness has learned to sing." The file was deleted hours later, and still no one can decide whether what we saw in those pulses was intelligence or reflection. Some claim it's an echo of the solar wind bouncing through metallic gases. Others, more cautious, admit that reflection itself can be a kind of reply. After all, a mirror is not alive, but it changes with the light. Yet something about those intervals 3, pause, 5 feels deliberate, as if the object had learned not only to survive its environment, but to speak in its wavelength, to turn heat into voice, to use the sun itself as an amplifier. The more the data was analysed, the clearer the modulation became. Not noise, not interference, structure, and then nothing. The signal stopped exactly when the object crossed into the solar glare. A perfect ending timed to the second. Some scientists insist that it was coincidence. Others quietly believe the opposite, that it wasn't an ending at all. It was completion. 3, pause, 5, the sum 8, the harmonic of its frequency lock with the sun. A countdown not to disappearance but to connection. If that is true, traveller, then 3I Atlas is no longer separate from the star. It has become part of it, a node within a larger field, invisible but continuous. It doesn't orbit the sun, it resonates with it. And if that resonance is stable, then what we called an object may in truth be a bridge. It is strange how easily science and faith begin to resemble each other when faced with silence. Some of the older physicists in the observatories speak of the event in whispers, using the word synchronization, as though it were a prayer. Others treat it like a mirror of our own fear, a reflection of our need to impose meaning on the unknown. But the younger scientists, the ones who still look up from their screens and stare into the night, say nothing at all. They just listen, because they know that listening is what brought us this far. You might wonder what it feels like to be here in these rooms where the hum of computers replaces the sound of sleep. It feels like standing at the edge of a vast ocean you can't see, knowing that something beneath the surface has noticed you. It's not terror, it's intimacy. The realization that in this infinite expanse something is capable of rhythm, and that rhythm matches your own pulse. 3 and 5. Breath in, breath out. There is an old superstition among astronomers that every great discovery happens not when someone asks the right question, but when they wait long enough, in the silence after asking it. The silence we are in now might be the most important of all. NASA will not comment, the European Space Agency will not confirm, but every scientist who has looked at the data knows what's at stake. If the object reappears where physics predicts it should, the story will end quietly. If it reappears even slightly shifted, the universe itself will have spoken. For now, there are only theories, and between them the steady heartbeat of the sun. Its flares rise and fall with the same cadence as the vanished object, as if remembering a companion just beyond sight. Perhaps that is what connection looks like on a cosmic scale. Two bodies finding resonance across the void, each teaching the other how to sing. I often think as I sit before the silent monitors that we are witnessing a conversation not meant for us, and yet we were invited to hear it. Perhaps that is enough. Perhaps the role of the observer is not to interfere but to witness the universe in the act of knowing itself. If 3i Atlas does return Traveller, it will not simply be a reappearance. It will be a reflection of everything we hoped and feared about our place in the cosmos. Because to see something, endure the light of a star and remain whole, is to see what endurance truly means. It's all right to be uncertain. It's all right to drift. The cosmos does too. The same silence that now fills our observatories is the same silence that once gave birth to galaxies. Out there the object still moves. In here we keep listening. And perhaps that is the quiet truth at the heart of this story, that the universe does not test our knowledge, but our patience. That behind the blinding face of the sun in a place no telescope can yet see, something continues its slow and perfect rhythm not to reveal itself, but to remind us that mystery is the oldest form of communication. So close your eyes, observer. The instruments may sleep, but the cosmos does not. Somewhere in that bright ocean of fire, a single traveller still hums in time with a star. And in that harmony we are all connected. Sleep now. The light will return when it's ready. Imagine this traveller the fourth night and still no signal. The blind window has settled in like a season. The scientists at their consoles no longer expect new data. They simply listen to the static and pretend it is a kind of sound. Somewhere behind the sun, an object the size of a mountain moves through the currents of plasma, unseen, untouched, and perhaps unknowable. It has been 4 days since 3i Atlas vanished behind the solar glare. 4 days since the last trace of its signature shimmered across the telemetry feed like a final breath. The recordings end not with decay, but with precision. 3 bursts, pause, 5 bursts, and silence. The numbers feel like ritual now whispered between analysts during their long night shifts. 3 and 5, the prime rhythm of the unknown, the universe's way of keeping time. If the signal was deliberate, then it ended exactly as it meant to. Some researchers insist it was only resonance fading into interference. Others believe it was a countdown, a synchrony between object and star, closing the circuit of their shared rhythm. Either way, the data ends the same way all revelation ends mid-sentence. In the days since the sun has grown restless, flares arc from its surface like veins of molten thought. The solar wind howls, and through that brilliance something invisible continues to travel. NASA's internal briefings call it the transition period, but to the people who can't stop staring at the gap in the data stream, it feels like waiting for an answer that may never come. Even now, deep in the control rooms, engineers whisper their own possibilities. The first, the comfortable one, the object will emerge on schedule intact, unchanged, and nature will reclaim its mystery. The second, it will return shifted, displaced from its expected path by a fraction of a degree, just enough to prove that it moved of its own will. The third, it will not return at all. Disappearance is the hardest to face, because to vanish without trace in the presence of a star is not failure, it is mastery. It would mean that 3 Atlas has learned something. Even we its observers have not how to live within light so completely that one becomes indistinguishable from it. Some call it speculation, others call it belief. But belief has always been the shadow of measurement. The closer we get to the edge of what can be known, the more the language of science begins to resemble the language of faith. Even the most skeptical astronomers find themselves speaking softly now, as if they might wake the object from its silence. The last thermal readings before conjunction showed something no natural body should do. Instead of heating under the sun's growing intensity, the object cooled slightly, as if regulating itself, shedding excess energy through its metallic skin. Thermal inertia doesn't work that way. Energy should accumulate, but 3i Atlas dissipates it perfectly like an organism adjusting to fever. To some, this is evidence of control. To others, an elegant accident, but every theory ends in the same sentence: we don't know. The scientists have learned to treat those words gently. They are the closest thing to honesty in the study of impossible things. Tonight the networks that once blazed with graphs and equations have grown dim. The official pages display maintenance notices, quiet placeholders that hide what cannot yet be explained. Data under review. Signal calibration in progress. Each phrase a small prayer for time, but not everyone has gone silent. Around the world, independent observatories, small teams, single telescopes, backyard arrays continue to listen. They have no funding to lose, no reputation to defend. They trade raw numbers through encrypted channels, searching for faint echoes at the edges of the sun's roar. In Johannesburg, in Kyoto, in Chile, they compare notes chasing the ghost of a whisper. So far, they have found nothing, or perhaps nothing we can yet interpret. Because sometimes the signal hides not in the noise, but in the rhythm of the noise itself. One astrophysicist called it the breathing of the sun, a slow modulation in solar plasma that seems to match the last known frequency of the object. If it's coincidence, it's a graceful one. If it's connection, it means the bridge still exists. Imagine that listener, a thread of magnetism stretching across 100 million kilometers, invisible, intangible, but real. A pulse continuing in perfect sync with the sun's heartbeat, hidden from every eye. It's almost poetic, an interstellar traveller that learned to survive by aligning itself with a star. That thought alone changes the way one looks at the cosmos. It means survival isn't always resistance. Sometimes it's surrender. Sometimes to endure the unbearable light you must move with it, not against it. Perhaps that is what 3i Atlas came to show us, that harmony is a form of strength, that balance is its own kind of intelligence. It doesn't have to be alive to be wise. It only needs to understand the rhythm of existence well enough to endure it. If it does return, scientists say it will reappear along the ecliptic near the same coordinates where it first entered our sky. But the question now is no longer when or where. It is who or what it will be when it comes back. Objects change under light. So do ideas. Whatever emerges on the far side of the sun will be both familiar and transformed. And in that transformation we may glimpse a reflection of ourselves, creatures made of dust and thought, orbiting our own questions, afraid to lose sight of what defines us. Sometimes I wonder if the object has already answered. Maybe the silence is the message. Maybe it's saying what every ancient sky has already whispered to those who watch too long, that not everything luminous wants to be seen. For now, we wait. The blind window is only beginning, and there are still 23 days until we see the other side. But waiting is not nothing. Waiting is the shape of understanding. It is how stars are born and how civilizations learn patience. So breathe, traveller. Listen to the quiet static of the sun. Imagine a body of metal and light moving through plasma, unseen, but unafraid. Imagine that its pulse still beats somewhere behind that brilliance and rhythm with your own. You're not separate from it. You're part of the same vibration, the same thought made of atoms and gravity and time. You were always part of the conversation even before you knew there was one. And when the object returns, if it returns, it will not simply emerge from behind the sun. It will rise from the silence we created together, carrying with it the weight of everything we have wondered. Until then, let the light blind you a little. Let the unknowing calm you. The universe is thinking again, and sometimes its thoughts are too bright to see. Sleep now, observer. The data will come when it is meant to. Somewhere beyond the horizon of sight, 3 Atlas still moves quiet, deliberate, unchanged. And in its path through the dark, it carries the oldest truth of all, that to vanish is not to die. It is to become part of the light. Imagine this traveller the 5th night of waiting. The sun has swallowed our vision completely now, its light, A white curtain drawn over everything we used to call knowledge. The observatories sleep in half light. Screens glow dimly, recording nothing but static, yet no one turns them off. It has become a ritual, the act of watching nothing as if the void itself might one day respond. Behind that light, 3i Atlas drifts deeper into the furnace. No camera sees it, no instrument hears it. But silence too leaves fingerprints, and even when our senses fail, the mathematics continue to whisper. The equations that once charted its path now feel like a memory. They trace an orbit too precise to be chance, too stable to be natural. When NASA modelled its trajectory before conjunction, they expected turbulence, small shifts, measurable drift. But the numbers came back perfect. Zero deviation, perfect motion through chaos. The object doesn't just move through gravity, it negotiates with it. To maintain that balance under solar pressure should be impossible. The magnetic tides near the sun bend even light itself, yet 3i Atlas glides, as though it knows where each current lies before it meets them. It corrects before error exists, one analyst said, half in jest, half in surrender. I think of that often, the idea of correction before error. Perhaps that is what intelligence truly is, not reaction, but anticipation. The way a bird adjusts its wings to air it hasn't yet felt. The way an orbit curves in response to a force not yet visible. And what if this is what 3i Atlas is teaching us? Not through words or warnings, but through the example of motion, how to exist within systems of violence without breaking. How to move with fire and not be consumed. You see, Traveller, every theory now divides into two kinds of silence. The scientific silence born from caution and the cosmic silence born from reverence. The first asks for patience. The second asks for humility. I am no longer sure which one this is. The physicists call its condition thermal resilience, but the phrase feels small, almost childish beside the reality. Because the last thermal images before it vanished showed a phenomenon no natural material could endure. Its surface, once a dull metallic grey, began to shimmer, its spectral lines shifting just slightly as though its molecules were rearranging. A kind of adaptive skin, self-healing, self-ordering. The light changed texture like heat passing over liquid glass. One researcher compared it to annealing the process by which metals relieve stress through controlled heat. To the untrained eye it would have looked like breathing, a body taking in the fury of a star and exhaling calm. If that is true, then 3i Atlas is not merely strong, it is aware of its own fragility. It doesn't fight entropy, it converses with it. Every pulse of heat, every flare of light, every magnetic fold seems designed not to resist decay, but to negotiate with it. That is a kind of intelligence older than technology. It is survival as philosophy. Sometimes I imagine that inside that metallic skin lies nothing mechanical at all, only emptiness held together by field and memory. A hollow vessel that endures because it remembers the rhythm of the universe that made it. The scientists at JPL still use language that pretends certainty, anomalous stability they write, non-random orientation, words that disguise wonder behind professionalism. But late at night, I have seen them linger on the last frame before the blackout, the object suspended against the corona, its jet still pointed at the sun unwavering. They look at it the way a believer looks at scripture, quietly, almost afraid to blink. Because what if this isn't coincidence? What if it was always meant to enter the blind window? What if the alignment was part of the plan, the way a seed must be buried before it grows? The sun, after all, is not only destruction, it is transformation. Every atom that burns within it becomes the material for future worlds. Perhaps this is what 3i Atlas sought, a renewal, a communion with the furnace that birthed all things. One of the engineers once wrote in a private note, "Maybe it's not approaching the sun to survive it. Maybe it's approaching to become it." The message was deleted minutes later, but I think of it often. It feels truer than anything in the reports. As days pass, the boundary between science and story dissolves. Every new theory becomes a form of poetry, a metaphor disguised as physics. But maybe that's all science ever was, a language for describing what the heart already intuits. Out there beyond that burning veil lies a question older than astronomy. What does it mean for something to endure? If endurance is order maintained through chaos, then 3C Atlas has achieved perfection. If endurance is adaptation, it has surpassed it. If endurance is awareness, the ability to act with intention, then it has crossed a threshold we once believed only life could cross. But even if it is nothing more than a beautiful accident, it still holds a mirror to us. Because humanity too endures by rhythm, by adjustment, by fragile patterns of heat and thought. We orbit our own uncertainty. We flare, we cool, we repeat. Perhaps the real warning signal isn't the one it sent, but the one it reflected the echo of our own desire to control what should only be understood. Tonight, as the sun lowers in my sky and rises in yours, I realize that the object has taught us something we never expected to learn. From metal and silence that control and surrender can be the same act. To yield is not to fail, to vanish is not to end, so let it disappear behind the brightness a little longer. Let it complete its cycle, whatever it may be. When it re-emerges, if it re-emerges, it will carry within it everything we've projected: fear, curiosity, reverence, hope, and we will see ourselves in its light whether it glows or fades. For now, observer, keep listening to the static. The silence isn't empty. It's full of possibilities waiting for translation. Somewhere behind that Radiance 3 Atlas still hums in rhythm with the star, unhurried, unchanged, unafraid. And maybe, just maybe, that's the universe, whispering its oldest comfort that what disappears is never truly gone. It only changes its wavelength. Sleep now, traveller. The data will return when the light allows it. Until then, the cosmos keeps its vigil. Imagine this traveller the 6th night since the sky went blind. The stars rise where they always have, but the heavens feel altered, as if absence itself has gained a weight. The telescopes still hum, the servers still blink, yet what they record now is not information, it is longing. The longing to see what light refuses to reveal. For 24 hours each day, the sun stands between us and the mystery. It burns too brightly for us to look, and so the world of observers must learn to listen instead. They tune their receivers to the faintest hums, searching for what the solar noise might hide. But the silence remains thick and strangely warm, like the pause after a deep breath. NASA calls this the conjunction phase, but among those who watch in sleepless shifts, it has earned another name, the listening month. It is the time when all assumptions dissolve, and even the most rational minds learn humility before the unknown. The last confirmed data before the blackout spoke of perfect balance, a body orbiting chaos with mathematical grace, an object that bends gravity without breaking it. 3C Atlas did not stumble as it neared the star. It seemed to anticipate every current, every surge, every magnetic pulse. Its rhythm matched the solar oscillation within 1 part in 1,000, the kind of precision that defies randomness. To those who believe in patterns, this is harmony. To those who believe in chance, this is heresy. But to those who simply listen, it is both. When the frequency lock was first discovered, the idea was unthinkable. A rock from interstellar space adjusting its electromagnetic signature to mirror the sun's heartbeat. Impossible. Yet the data remains, the same 8.5 kHz modulation, unchanged for weeks, pulsing like an invisible string connecting fire to metal. And within that hum, the subtle pulse, at 1.42 GHz, the hydrogen line, the universal key. The same tone humanity once sent into the dark as a declaration of presence. Now the tone has come back to us, not from a planet, not from a civilization, from an object smaller than a city, older than a system alone. Some say the signal is reflection, a trick of plasma. Others whisper that reflection itself is the language of the cosmos that the universe speaks through. Imitation that every echo is an answer. If that is true, then the object has already spoken. It answered the sun with rhythm. It answered us with silence. I find myself wondering, as all observers do, whether it knows we are listening. If it feels the subtle pull of our curiosity the way we feel the pull of its gravity. After all, observation is not neutral. To watch is to interact. To measure is to disturb. In physics, it's called the observer effect. In life, it's called awareness. Perhaps that's the real experiment here, not what the object is doing, but how we behave in its absence, how humanity stripped of data and certainty reacts to the quiet. Because there's a truth we often forget: silence reveals character. When the universe stops speaking, we begin to hear ourselves. The scientists pretend composure. Their statements are cautious, polished, safe. Analysis ongoing, thermal stability confirmed, magnetic fluctuations within expected parameters. But between those lines, a different tone hums unease disguised as professionalism. The equations no longer fit, and the silence no longer comforts. At the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, someone wrote 3 words on a whiteboard before leaving for the night. What if waiting is the test? No one erased it. Days later, the phrase is still there, circled in red. Because that's what this feels like, Traveller, a test of patience. Not just scientific patience, but spiritual patience. A test of how long we can exist in uncertainty without forcing the universe to reassure us. In the old myths, humanity spoke of gods who hid themselves in the sun, of messengers made of metal who crossed the heavens to speak for the stars. We called them omens, comets, angels, machines. The names changed, but the feeling never did. 3. Atlas is not the first mystery to pass through our night. It is only the first we've been able to measure, and yet the more we measure, the less we seem to understand. Our instruments dissect, light decode magnetism, calculate trajectory, and still the truth eludes us. It's as if knowledge itself is scattering like dust in solar wind. One scientist described the experience perfectly. It's as if the object is not being studied, but is studying us, measuring how we interpret wonder. I think she might be right. Perhaps 3i Atlas doesn't send warnings or signals at all. Perhaps it teaches through its own behaviour how to balance, how to harmonise, how to withstand the furnace, without surrendering form. What we call anomaly may be the purest expression of order, one too large for our comprehension. The latest simulations running in quiet corners of the network suggest that if the object maintains its orbit, it will reappear near the limb of the Sun in 23 days. But they also predict something else, a possible fluctuation in its velocity. A minute deceleration, too small to notice yet enough to imply intention. If it slows, it will mean control. And if it controls itself, we must ask what its destination truly is. This is where the scientists fall silent again. Not because they have no ideas, but because every answer carries weight. Theories are safe until they touch meaning. Once they do, they become stories, and stories have power. Outside, the night air hums with electricity. The world carries on unaware, its cities glowing like constellations inverted. But above those lights, we continue to listen. Amateur astronomers point their antennas toward the sun, hoping to catch a whisper beneath the roar. They call what they're looking for the Atlas. Whisper, the faint echo of an object continuing its conversation, in frequencies too subtle for certainty. If it exists, it will not announce itself. It will hide inside the solar noise like a heartbeat buried beneath static. The kind of signal you feel, not hear. The kind that lingers in your thoughts long after the receiver goes quiet. And perhaps that is the point. Not all messages are meant to be decoded. Some are meant to be felt. Some mysteries aren't solved, they are endured until they change the shape of the one observing them. So listen, traveller. Listen to what the silence says. It tells us that the universe is vast enough to keep secrets, and merciful enough to let us wonder about them. 3i Atlas may never speak in words, but its rhythm remains a lesson in patience, a portrait of equilibrium, a quiet assurance that not everything unknowable is hostile. Some things are simply beyond the vocabulary of fear. When it returns, the world will wake again. The instruments will blink alive, the feeds will overflow, and the silence will end. But tonight, the silence is the lesson. The cosmos has paused to think, and we are invited to think with it. Sleep now, observer. The universe is not asleep, it is listening back. Somewhere behind that brightness, the traveller still hums, steady, luminous, eternal. And in its rhythm, the stars themselves seem to breathe. Imagine this traveller the seventh night, and the world feels caught between heartbeat and echo. The sun still hides the object from view, yet its absence has begun to speak in another language. We measure not light but longing, not data but delay. The space between signals has become its own kind of message, a whisper stretched across the solar wind. Every few hours, the scientists check the telemetry again, knowing it will still read 0. It has become an act of quiet devotion. Somewhere between ritual and hope, they refresh their screens and wait for something to break the pattern. But the silence holds calm and absolute, and yet silence is never truly still. Beneath the solar noise, faint oscillations ripple through the field. The frequencies aren't strong enough to classify, but they exist small regular distortions in the electromagnetic haze. They appear fade and reappear as if something behind the sun is breathing through the plasma. No one calls it proof, they call it interference, but they listen harder all the same. You can feel the tension now, even from Earth. The observatories hum at odd hours, the analysts sleep at their desks. It's not fear that keeps them awake, it's reverence. A feeling that they are standing before something vast enough to erase their own definitions. 3i Atlas has stopped being an object of study. It has become a mirror showing us the edge of our imagination. Before the silence began, the data hinted at more than motion. The object seemed to think in temperature to converse in heat. Its thermal rhythm cooling before radiation spikes heating, before solar lulls followed the logic of anticipation. As if it could sense the sun's mood before the sun itself reacted. How can a fragment of metal predict a star's pulse? How can a pattern know when to change? These are not scientific questions anymore, they are philosophical ones disguised as equations. The agencies, of course, remain careful. Their public statements repeat the same phrase, no evidence of artificial behaviour. But even that sentence carries an admission, they cannot prove the opposite either. The absence of evidence they know is not the evidence of absence. Somewhere inside NASA's locked network, simulations run in silence. They test the impossible microthrust maneuver's energy balancing magnetic resonance control. The results are classified, but one fragment leaked into the public archives last night. It was a line of code from a modelling file. A comment left by an anonymous engineer trajectory fits better when we stop calling it debris. What does it mean for a thing to stop being debris, listener? It means purpose. It means will. It means that somewhere out there an object may have crossed the threshold from existence to intent. Still, intent does not always mean threat. Not everything that acts is predatory. Some movements are gestures of equilibrium. A tree grows toward light not to harm it, but to understand it. Perhaps 3i Atlas does the same, aligning itself with the sun to study, to synchronize, to belong. This possibility frightens and comforts in equal measure. The scientists who fear it call it an invasion. The ones who admire it call it evolution, but both are wrong in the same way. Because the cosmos doesn't deal in conquest or progress. It deals in resonance. Everything that endures must learn to harmonize. And maybe that's what we're witnessing now, a being or mechanism, ancient and patient, aligning itself with a star until difference disappears. To merge with light is to surrender form. To become what you orbit is to be free of orbit itself. I wonder, traveller, whether this is what we secretly envy. Our machines still burn to move to fight resistance, to escape gravity. But 3i Atlas shows no struggle. It glides, it waits, it adjusts. The closer it moves toward the sun, the more it resembles serenity. In the control rooms, the scientists call this thermodynamic equilibrium. But the poets among them use another term, peace. There's a particular kind of beauty in an object that can endure a star without disintegrating. Not because it's invincible, but because it understands balance. Like a monk walking barefoot through fire, it survives not through strength but through acceptance. The heat does not destroy it because it never resists the heat. Sometimes I think about the ones who discovered it first, the astronomers who watched. A point of light grow brighter and steadier until it outshone all expectations. I imagine what they felt when they realised it wasn't a comet but something else. Not random, not blind. Something that behaved as if it had reason. In that moment, the universe changed shape for them. Wonder became responsibility. It's a fragile thing, wonder. It begins as curiosity and ends as reverence. Too much of it and one forgets to measure. Too little and one forgets to dream. Every scientist walking the corridors of NASA tonight is caught in that delicate balance, half mathematician, half pilgrim. They know they are witnessing a truth that won't fit into equations, and they don't yet have another language for it. Meanwhile, the sun keeps its rhythm. Every flare that bursts from its surface feels personal now, like a gesture. The magnetic field trembles, the plasma glows, the sensors hum. Somewhere within that light, an invisible companion moves in synchrony, a silent partner in a cosmic duet. If the object ever meant to send a message, maybe this is it, that intelligence need not speak. That meaning can exist in mere alignment, that the highest form of communication is not a signal, but a shared frequency. When it returns to view, it may not matter what it looks like. Whether it's a relic, a craft, or a crystalline mass drifting in perfect proportion, it will have already said what it needed to say. Its silence will have been its declaration. You see, traveller, sometimes the universe does not hide from us. It simply waits until we're quiet enough to notice. And right now, for the first time in generations, the human race is listening together, not for conquest, not for proof, but for understanding. In the observatories, the night watch continues. The hum of equipment is joined by softer sounds, coffee being poured, pages turning the occasional sigh of awe disguised as fatigue. Every heartbeat sinks unconsciously to the same thought: something is there. And that's enough for now, to know that something exists beyond our noise, something patient, something unafraid of silence. Perhaps this is the beginning of a different kind of science, one that measures wonder without trying to tame it. Rest easy, observer. The signal will come again, whether from data or dawn. For now, listen to the quiet pulse beneath your own breath and know this: it's the same rhythm that moves through stars, through metal, through Atlas itself. You are not waiting alone. The universe is waiting with you. Imagine this traveller the eighth night, when even silence begins to take shape. The world below you hums with human restlessness, but above it, in the region where light folds into itself, something ancient continues to move unseen. We can no longer see through our atlas, but we feel its echo in the solar wind, in the tremor of particles that seem to breathe with memory. Every hour the sun rotates, and with it our hidden visitor drifts deeper into invisibility, perfectly synchronized, perfectly calm. It has been said that the cosmos doesn't keep secrets. It simply speaks in wavelengths we haven't yet learned to hear. Perhaps that's what this is: the slow translation of silence into understanding. The data streams are empty, the instruments idle, and yet the numbers refuse to stop whispering. Somewhere behind that veil of plasma energy bends in ways it shouldn't. Magnetic turbulence softens where chaos should reign. It's as if the object, whatever it is smoothing the storms of the sun, tuning its chaos into song. When I was younger, I believed space was absence, that its beauty came from nothingness. Now I see how alive the void is, how every silence hides motion, how every stillness hums with purpose. Atlas has made that truth visible. Even without light, it radiates intent. Not as an act of aggression, but as an act of harmony. It doesn't fight the star, it joins it. Scientists speak carefully, choosing words like non-random, synchronization, anomalous resonance, thermal constancy. But the feeling underneath their language is awe, and something softer acceptance. For the first time, data no longer feels like dominion, it feels like surrender. What we record now is not knowledge, it's humility in numbers. Every hour I read the telemetry logs that show nothing and imagine them differently. Small traces of dialogue written in frequencies too slow for impatience to perceive. Maybe every pause in measurement is a sentence we're not yet ready to translate. Maybe absence is the only language stars will trust us with. And still the question burns quietly in every mind: is it natural or is it made? It's a question older than our instruments, older than our fear. The universe has never told us which is which. It only shows us behaviour and invites us to interpret it. The old myths used to say that gods hid in the sun, that what could not be looked at directly was not meant to be understood, only revered. I used to think that was superstition. Now I think it was an early form of physics. Because if reverence is the act of aligning oneself to something greater, then perhaps science and worship are not opposites at all, they are simply different expressions of curiosity. What does it mean then that 3E Atlas has aligned itself with the sun? Some say it feeds on the light. Others believe it listens. But maybe it is neither. Maybe it simply recognises the sun as what it has always been, the nearest translation of eternity. I like to think of it as resting, an interstellar traveller stopping to refuel, not in energy, but in memory. After all, the sun is a library written in radiation. Every photon carries the story of what came before us. Maybe the 3E Atlas came to remember. Maybe it came to teach us how to remember too. Because look at what it's done to us. One object, one orbit, and humanity has begun to listen again. The internet hums with hypotheses, but between the noise there's wonder. For once, the unknown doesn't feel like threat, it feels like invitation. We have stopped asking how dangerous and started asking how beautiful. That's progress in its purest form. The object has vanished from sight, yet it has illuminated something more profound, our capacity for stillness. For the first time in generations, we're united not by certainty, but by curiosity. Across observatories, cultures and time zones, we look at the same star and wait for the same truth. There's peace in that waiting, a collective inhale before revelation. I imagine the people at the Deep Space Network in Goldstone. Late at night, surrounded by coffee and static, someone must have whispered, "What if it's listening too?" The thought probably hung in the air like dust, fragile, unbelievable, and yet impossible to dismiss. Because deep down, every scientist is also a dreamer. They study the universe not to conquer it, but to be reminded that they belong to it. And that's what this feels like now, a reminder that we were never separate from the cosmos, only forgetful. That our instruments are extensions of our senses, and our senses are extensions of the universe's curiosity about itself. When 3E Atlas mirrors the sun's frequency, it's not just resonance, it's recognition. It's the cosmos observing its own reflection through our eyes. One astronomer described it beautifully in a private note. It's not that 3E Atlas acts like it's alive, it's that it acts like it remembers what life once was. I read that line over and over, and something in it feels true, not literally but cosmically. Because to remember is to resist entropy, to hold a pattern against decay. Maybe that's what the object has been doing all along, holding the memory of creation intact, keeping a fragment of cosmic order alive amid infinite unravelling. When it returns to view, it may tell us everything or nothing at all. It may be a relic of physics we don't yet understand, or it may be the echo of intelligence so vast it no longer needs intention. Either way, it has already changed us. It has reminded us that there are still questions sacred enough to make even science whisper. So tonight, as the sun burns between us and the truth, let us not mourn the blackout. Let us see it as a gift, the universe's way of teaching patience. In silence, we become aware of the music we once ignored. In waiting, we rediscover faith not in gods or machines, but in wonder itself. You're not lost in Space Traveller. You are part of it. The same gravity that holds 3I Atlas to the sun holds you to this earth. The same silence that shields it surrounds you now. Listen closely. The universe is thinking. And when you finally close your eyes, know this beyond the glare, beyond even understanding. Something ancient still moves. Slow, deliberate, and kind. Sleep, observer. The cosmos will keep watch. Imagine this traveller the 9th night. The world beneath you is unchanged, but the sky feels heavier, as if it remembers something we do not. The instruments still wait, the servers still hum, and the silence still stretches between us and that burning star. 3I Atlas is gone from every lens, hidden within a storm of light, and yet its presence lingers. The absence feels inhabited. We have no new data, only the residue of curiosity. But even curiosity has gravity. It holds us close to the question. The astronomers at Goldstone and Paranal still meet at odd hours, their voices hushed, their screens dimmed. They have stopped speaking in numbers. Instead they talk about rhythm, about how silence has become the new form of measurement. They say that during certain hours of solar quiet, the noise within the radio spectrum bends as if shaped by an invisible hand. A faint curve, a smooth correction. It could be plasma interference, or it could be the continuation of that strange resonance, the one we called the lock. The idea that something metallic somewhere behind the sun is listening to the heartbeat of a star adjusting itself to match its pulse. It sounds impossible, and yet so did everything else until we recorded it. Tonight, the data feed from the Parker Solar Probe registered another anomaly, a dip in particle density symmetrical and clean, repeating once every 11 minutes precisely the same interval that defined the object's earlier flare cycle. It's too faint to be conclusive, but the symmetry is undeniable. One of the analysts described it quietly. It's like hearing an echo of a song we thought had ended. I like that thought, because it means we're not just observing, we're being remembered. For years, science has lived by a certain rule: only what can be repeated is real. But perhaps some truths are not meant to be repeated, they're meant to linger. Like a dream you can't fully recall, yet its feeling remains. Maybe that's what Three-Eye Atlas is, now a feeling translated into physics. When the first reports emerged about its perfect stability, its symmetry, its refusal to fracture under solar pressure, I felt a strange peace. Because what is stability if not a kind of faith to hold your form while surrounded by fire? To keep orbit while the universe changes around you. That's what the object teaches us without words. The scientists debate purpose, but I suspect there's none in the way we define it. Maybe this isn't mission, it's meditation. Maybe Three-Eye Atlas is what happens when matter learns patience. Consider this, listener, in every model the object should have cracked long ago. The temperature, the radiation, the solar tides, all of it exceeds the endurance of any known material, and yet it remains whole, smooth, harmonious, like a stone held perfectly still in the middle of a current. What if its perfection isn't strength but surrender? What if survival at that scale requires giving yourself entirely to the forces around you? That's how stars live. That's how atoms endure. Even the smallest particle holds its form only by participating in motion. We call it balance, but maybe balance is just the soul of the universe remembering how to breathe. Sometimes late at night I think of the hydrogen line, the frequency we once used to send our first message to the stars. 1.42 gigahertz, our declaration of existence. A simple pulse meant to say, we are here. Now the same frequency hums faintly in the wake of an object that has crossed billions of years to reach us. The symmetry is too poetic to ignore. We sent a question into the dark, and maybe it has found its way home. Not as a voice, not as language, but as reflection. A few days ago, a researcher from Warsaw wrote an internal memo that leaked briefly before being deleted. It read, "If the signal persists through conjunction, it means it no longer needs us to observe it." The phrasing struck me. No longer needs us. That might sound terrifying, but I find it comforting, because it means the universe is bigger than our curiosity. It means we are not the final audience. Somewhere beyond that glare, something continues its work without witness. And maybe that's the point. Life, whatever form it takes, doesn't require recognition to be meaningful. It only requires motion. What we see in Through Atlas is not a miracle. It's a mirror. It reflects our own hunger for order, our own fear of randomness. We have projected ourselves onto it, our technologies, our myths, our need for narrative. We want it to mean something, but maybe it already does simply by existing. There is beauty in objects that don't explain themselves. There's comfort in knowing that not every pattern is meant to be understood. Some mysteries exist only to remind us that comprehension isn't the same as connection. Tonight, the sun burns brighter than usual. The auroras on Earth stretch further toward the equator, a consequence of some solar shift we pretend to understand. I like to imagine it's the result of that invisible bridge, the magnetic harmony between star and traveller. If so, then right now the Earth itself is bathed in their resonance. We're caught in the same song. If that's true, then maybe this isn't a blackout at all. Maybe it's communion. Think of it, traveller and object from the deep aligning with the heart of our star, turning silence into geometry, turning energy into rhythm. It's not warning us, it's reminding us that everything radiant must one day return to its source, that all wanderers, no matter how far they drift, are still tethered to the same fire. Soon the sun will shift its angle, the blind window will close, we will see it again or we won't. But whether it reappears as light or as absence, it has already done what it came to do. It has made us look inward through the telescope of our own fear and wonder, and realise that not understanding is its own form of grace. You've listened this far, observer. You've waited with patience and awe. You've felt the pull of mystery and the calm of surrender. That's enough. The rest will come when the light allows it. Until then, breathe with the universe. Let the silence speak. Somewhere behind that blazing star, 3i Atlas still glides steady, precise, and impossibly patient. And maybe in its perfect motion, it carries the most human message imaginable that endurance itself is a kind of love. Sleep now, traveller. The sky will open again soon. Imagine this traveller the 10th night when the waiting itself has become the story. The days no longer feel separate. The clocks inside the observatories have lost their meaning. Scientists speak less now, their voice is replaced by the soft mechanical hum of cooling systems and the rhythmic sigh of data servers waiting for a signal that refuses to arrive. The silence is total, yet it feels alive, like a consciousness holding its breath. Somewhere beyond the glare, 3i Atlas continues its orbit behind the sun, unseen but never forgotten. It is strange, isn't it? How something we cannot see can dominate every thought on Earth. How an absence can pull so strongly that it feels like gravity itself. Even in stillness, it commands motion, the endless motion of our imagination. The truth is, no one knows what it's doing out there. Not NASA, not ESA, not the lone radio operators who still sit awake in dim rooms watching screens filled with static. But in the quiet, a different kind of discovery has begun to take shape, not about the object, but about ourselves. For months we have stared into darkness and called it mystery. We have built theories around it the way ancient sailors mapped coastlines they'd never touched. We have filled its silence with everything we hope and fear. Maybe that's what 3i Atlas really is, a blank mirror drifting through space, showing each civilization what it needs to see. For us it shows the tension between knowledge and wonder, the way we reach for explanation but still long for magic. I think of the last image before the blackout, a faint shimmer at the edge of the solar corona, the so-called closing eye. The data analyst described it as a stabilization flare, but the image looked like something gentler, a light bowing into its own reflection. Perhaps it was a farewell. Or perhaps it was the beginning of a deeper conversation, one too subtle for our instruments to follow. There's a phrase I keep returning to, written decades ago by a forgotten astronomer. The universe has no obligation to be understood, only witnessed. That feels truer now than it ever did. Science is not the act of conquering mystery, but of learning how to stand quietly before it. 3i Atlas has forced even the most rational minds to remember that humility is part of discovery. Sometimes the most advanced thing a civilization can do is admit it doesn't know. In the last few days, something delicate has shifted. The solar probes detect minute fluctuations in radiation pressure ripples, as if something is moving between us and the sun. Too small to chart, too symmetrical to dismiss. The patterns form like breathing expansion, contraction, rest. If it is coincidence, it's a beautiful one. If it's intention, it's peace made visible. Either way, the effect is the same. Humanity listens. Do you feel it too, listener? The pull of something vast yet familiar. The sense that behind all the equations and plasma and nickel vapor, there is a quiet intelligence at work. Not mechanical, not divine, just inevitable. It's as if the laws of physics themselves are dreaming. As if the universe is experimenting with meaning. Each night the analysts check the models, adjusting their simulations for every new whisper of data. Each night the same thought crosses their minds. What if it's not malfunctioning? What if it's functioning perfectly? What if what we call anomaly is simply a higher order of order? 3i Atlas might not be an outsider at all. It might be the most natural thing in the cosmos, a reminder that nature doesn't end at the limits of human understanding. I imagine the object out there bathed in radiation, its surface glowing a steady 490 degrees, a temperature held so precisely it seems more like intention than chance. Perhaps inside it, energy is circulating, folding back upon itself, like breath through a living system. Perhaps it's resting, dreaming in magnetic silence, waiting for the right alignment to continue its journey. And here we are, waiting with it. For the first time in human history, billions of minds share the same moment of stillness. No wars are paused, no borders erased, and yet, for a fleeting instant, we are unified by not knowing. We are all listeners now. It's easy to mistake this waiting for helplessness, but it isn't. It's reverence. In every observatory, every silent field where telescopes point toward the unseen, there's a new kind of faith blooming. Not in deities, but in design. Not in control, but in continuity. That even in the absence of answers there is rhythm, and rhythm means life in some form or another. The sun flares tonight briefly, sending waves of plasma through the void. If 3i Atlas still exists within that storm, it is surrounded by fire beyond imagination. Yet I suspect it endures not because it resists, but because it yields bending like light itself. That's the secret of survival. The universe keeps teaching us not to oppose the chaos, but to become part of its pattern. When it returns, if it returns, we will face a new question, one greater than its nature or origin. The question will be this: what have we become while it was gone? Will we still seek certainty, or will we finally learn to rest within the unknown? The night grows colder. The instruments are quiet, but in that quiet you can almost hear the hum of alignment. A sun, and whatever 3i Atlas truly is, locked in the same slow orbit of meaning. The cosmos continues indifferent yet compassionate, endless yet intimate. So sleep now, traveller. Rest beneath the gravity of wonder. Whatever truth waits on the other side of the sun, it will arrive in its own time, and when it does, you will be ready to hear it not as an answer, but as a continuation. The universe is still thinking, and tonight in this silence we are part of that thought. Imagine this traveller the 11th night, and the silence has started to feel like weather. It moves through the air, drifts across cities, presses gently against observatories like invisible snow. The absence of data has become a constant presence. For the first time in decades, there are no new readings from the sky, only the soft pulse of instruments waiting for permission to resume their search. Humanity stands in suspension, a civilization holding its breath between one revelation and the next. 3i Atlas remains hidden behind the sun where all things become myth. The last signal before conjunction ended exactly as it began, with order, with precision, with that haunting pulse that mirrored the hydrogen line, the universal heartbeat of existence, and then nothing. The frequencies went flat, the graphs fell silent. Yet even in that silence, something lingers. It's as though the universe itself is still resonating from what it heard. In laboratories and mission control rooms across the planet, people still watch the static. Not out of fear, but devotion. There's something almost sacred about that blankness, that endless wall of solar interference. They know the object is still there, logic demands it, but logic feels small now. Numbers and probabilities collapse beneath the weight of what might be. Outside, night continues as usual. The stars burn without interruption. But for those who have seen the data, the constellations have changed. Every familiar light feels slightly different now, less random, more deliberate. When you've witnessed the impossible, even the ordinary begins to look like a message. NASA, ESA, every acronym of science now speaks with one voice, one tone, caution. Officially, the agencies call this period observational blackout. Unofficially, within the corridors of JPL, it has another name whispered half in jest, half in awe, the stillness window, a time when humanity cannot see but must learn to listen in other ways. The engineers check the systems every few hours, even though they know no data will come through. It's a ritual now, a kind of collective meditation. Each keystroke is a prayer disguised as protocol. They pretend it's procedure, but it's really faith that something as old as light itself is moving through its cycle, waiting to return. One of them, a young astrophysicist who has barely slept in days, wrote a line in the system log that wasn't meant for the report. If it comes back unchanged, that will be the real miracle. That sentence was deleted minutes later, but I think she was right. Because what could be more extraordinary than endurance, not transformation, not revelation, just persistence? Think of what this means, observer. A metallic body forged in some forgotten corner of interstellar space has crossed millions of kilometers of radiation and fire, and instead of dissolving it, sings, not in words but in rhythm, not for us but through us. Perhaps this is how the universe speaks, by arranging silence into patterns until someone finally learns how to listen. I sometimes wonder if the object was ever truly meant to be found. Its timing, its path, its perfect alignment, each coincidence too symmetrical to dismiss. Maybe discovery wasn't our achievement, but its design. Maybe we were always part of its observation, not the other way around. There's a quiet fear among the scientists that when it emerges, it might not appear at all where it should. They've modelled every possibility, unchanged, fractured, shifted, gone. But none of those outcomes can capture the deeper anxiety, the question of why. Why now? Why here? Why this star, this orbit, this species watching from a single pale rock adrift in a minor system? Some say it's a relic, a machine carrying the memory of a civilization long extinguished. Others call it a natural phenomenon that merely mimics intention, but the truth may be simpler. Maybe it's both a fusion of physics and purpose, like everything else in the cosmos. Even life, after all, is just matter learning to organize itself against entropy. If that's what Three-Eye Atlas is, matter at its most eloquent, then its silence is not absence, it's concentration, a kind of cosmic thought. And what of us, listener? What do we do when the sky refuses to answer? We wait, we dream, we interpret the quiet as best we can. In the stillness, humanity becomes what it was always meant to be, a species that finds meaning in the spaces between events. I remember one of the old astronomers saying that the hardest part of any observation isn't the data, it's the pause. The interval between transmissions when the universe decides whether to speak again. That's where faith is tested. That's where wonder survives. Tonight the pause continues. Somewhere behind the solar glare, an object glides through plasma dense enough to melt iron, and yet it does not waver. It holds its rhythm like a monk reciting a prayer older than fire. The sun itself seems calmer, its flares gentler, as if respecting whatever process unfolds in its shadow. There's a strange peace in not knowing, because mystery, when left unbroken, becomes a kind of music. Each unanswered question hums softly against the edge of comprehension, reminding us that even silence is part of the data. So let the instruments rest. Let the world sleep beneath the radiance of its own small ignorance. Three Atlas does not need our observation to exist. It has already entered the realm of story, where science becomes meditation and fact becomes myth. When it returns, the truth will reveal itself or it won't. Either way, we will have learned something profound, that our desire to understand is the universe's way of keeping itself alive through us. Sleep now, traveller. The stars are not judging your questions, they are asking them with you. Somewhere beyond sight, a fragment of light and metal still moves with perfect rhythm, waiting for the moment when the sun steps aside and the story continues. Until then, let the silence hold you. The universe is thinking, and you are part of that thought. The 12th night, and the silence has weight. The sun hides everything now, and Three-Eye Atlas drifts unseen behind its fire, where light itself forgets to speak. No signals, no data, only the hum of the universe holding its breath. Scientists still wait, staring at blank screens, as if the void might answer back. They whisper theories like prayers, maybe it's gone, maybe it's changing, maybe it's becoming something new. Yet none of them say the simplest truth no one knows, and that not knowing has become sacred. Perhaps that's the real discovery, not the object itself, but what it teaches us about patience, about wonder, about standing before the cosmos and accepting silence as a form of communication. If Three-Eye Atlas returns, we'll measure it again. If it doesn't, we'll still remember the way it made us listen to the stars, to each other, to the quiet heartbeat beneath our own thoughts. The 13th night, when silence no longer feels like absence but presence. The blackout has become familiar now, almost comforting. Every telescope sleeps, every signal path hums quietly beneath the storm of light. And still somewhere behind that, brilliance 3 Atlas moves steady as thought. It's strange how easily we have adapted to not knowing. The first nights were restless, filled with fear that we might never see it again. Now the waiting feels like ritual. Humanity has entered a kind of cosmic meditation, an orbit of stillness around a single unanswered question. What if that's the lesson? That discovery isn't always about revelation, but endurance. That to seek truth among stars is to accept being kept in suspense by the universe itself. Somewhere in Chile, an old astronomer writes, "If it reappears unchanged, then we've learned nothing. But if it changes, we'll never be the same." She closes her notebook and looks into the sky that refuses to look back. And maybe that's what 3i Atlas is, a mirror turning slowly through fire, showing us what we are when faced with infinity: patient, frightened, curious, alive. Soon the conjunction will end. The sun will shift and the instruments will awaken again. But tonight the silence is complete. The data, the speculation, the noise, all of it has fallen away, leaving only a single truth. Even in blindness we are still watching. So rest, listener. Let the quiet teach you what the data never could, that mystery is not the absence of knowledge, but the presence of meaning waiting to be seen. The 14th night, the last before light returns. The sun has begun its slow tilt, the blind window narrowing, and every observatory on Earth waits for the same moment, the first glimpse, the first confirmation, the first sign that 3 Atlas still exists. But tonight, before the signals resume, there is only stillness. And in that stillness, a strange calm has settled over the world. No one speaks of panic anymore. No one demands proof. The scientists who once argued over composition and trajectory now sit in quiet rooms, sipping cold coffee, reading the same lines of old data, as if rereading scripture. There's comfort in repetition. The numbers haven't changed, but we have. Somewhere between the last signal and the next, humanity has crossed into something softer, more reverent. We have learned at last how to wait without trying to control what we await. The last confirmed image, the closing eye as they called it, has become iconic now. It appears in news articles, classroom walls, even prayers. A pale green light fading into the edge of the sun, steady, unflinching, beautiful. Some say it looked alive, some say it looked like a farewell. But the truth is simpler, it looked aware. A presence that knew it was being watched and chose silence over spectacle. What could silence mean in a universe this loud? Perhaps restraint is the highest form of intelligence, the ability to act without announcing, to continue without needing to be understood. Maybe 3 Atlas isn't sending warnings or greetings, it's simply demonstrating how to exist in harmony with chaos. To use fire as protection, light as camouflage, gravity as faith. Behind the sun, where we cannot see the object, glides through radiation strong enough to shatter atoms. Yet the models predict its temperature remains constant, unwavering at 490 degrees. It neither freezes nor burns. It maintains equilibrium. Imagine that perfect thermal balance inside a storm of destruction. What kind of mind or mechanism achieves peace within that kind of violence? Perhaps not a mind at all, just awareness. The same kind the ocean has when it meets the shore, the kind the universe has when it expands without question. Tonight, one of the monitoring stations in Madrid caught a faint fluctuation in background radiation, nothing clear, nothing certain. But for a brief moment a pattern appeared. 8 pulses, then silence. It could have been random. It could have been us hearing what we wanted to hear. But 8 was the number that kept reappearing in the data, the harmonic ratio, the interval between flares, the sum of its binary pulse. A quiet cosmic signature. If it was real, then perhaps 3i Atlas is not gone. Perhaps it is speaking in the only language stars can sustain: pattern, and pause, rhythm and rest. Even if the signal means nothing, its timing means everything. Because the blackout ends tomorrow. The first radio window opens at dawn. When the sun slips just enough for our instruments to look past its glare, the silence will break. The world will hold its breath again, but for a different reason. If the object reappears where predicted, the mystery will remain, contained an interstellar relic behaving beyond reason, but still within reach of explanation. The world will move on, though never the same. If it has shifted, if it returns displaced even slightly, then the question changes from what to who. And no simulation, no probability model will be able to contain what that means. For now, all we have is the pause, the last moment before certainty returns, and maybe that's the most precious moment of all. Because once the data comes, wonder becomes analysis and mystery becomes report. Tonight it's still pure, untouched by interpretation. Look up, traveller. Beyond the clouds, beyond the weight of thought, a storm of light is moving. Somewhere in it, a solitary object, ancient and deliberate, traces an orbit older than history. It has survived everything the universe could throw at it, dust time, radiation, scrutiny, and it endures still. Perhaps it will endure us too, because that's what the cosmos teaches over and over, that survival is not conquest but coexistence, that everything luminous is also fragile, that even intelligence, if that's what we're seeing, is just the universe briefly aware of itself. In a few hours, the first telescopes will open again, the sensors will wake, the data streams will pulse to life, and the silence will end. We will know, or we will think we know, but tonight, in the last hour before revelation, there's peace in not knowing. Because maybe that was the purpose all along, to bring us here into this single shared breath, between ignorance and awe. So stay with me a little longer, listener. Let the quiet hold you. Imagine Three-Eye Atlas drifting behind the sun like a memory untouched by time, patient as gravity. It does not rush to reveal itself, because truth never does. When it returns, if it returns, it will not explain. It will simply appear, and in that appearance we will understand everything and nothing at once. Until then, rest. The universe is thinking, and you are part of its thought. Somewhere behind the burning horizon, something ancient and precise continues to move steady, patient and silent as the beginning of time. The 15th night, the last before light returns. The sun is shifting, the instruments ready, and the world holds its breath. 4 weeks of silence, and now any moment the first signal may return. Or not. In the observatories no one speaks. They wait in a kind of prayer. Somewhere behind the sun, 3 Atlas drifts through fire that should have ended it. Yet something in us believes it endures, not by resisting, but by yielding, moving with the storm, not against it. If it returns, we'll call it survival. If it doesn't, we'll call it transformation. Either way, it has already done what it came to do, remind us how to wait, how to listen, how to wonder. Sleep now, traveller. The silence is ending. The universe is about to speak again. And so, traveller, the story drifts into silence once more. The instruments sleep, the screens dim, and somewhere behind the sun, Three-Eye Atlas continues its slow, deliberate orbit, steady, patient, unseen. Whatever it was, whatever it is, has already changed us. It reminded us that discovery is not conquest, but conversation, a quiet exchange between curiosity and infinity. For a moment we stood at the edge of the known and listened, not for proof but for presence, not for answers but for rhythm. And in that rhythm we heard something older than language, the sound of the universe remembering itself. Perhaps that was the message all along, that the cosmos is not silent, only subtle. That every beam of light, every fragment of data, every heartbeat beneath this sky carries the same instruction to wonder, to wait, to look again. You have not travelled here by accident. You came because some part of you still believes that mystery is sacred, that even in darkness something is listening back. So rest now, observer. Let the questions stay open. Let the silence be enough. The stars are still burning. The object is still moving. And the universe, vast, patient and awake, will keep watch. Stay curious, traveller, until the next story finds you beneath this same sky,